Welcome to the Sales Career Podcast. This is your host, Kevin Hopp. Whether you're an executive, sales leader, or just getting your career in sales started, I'm here to help you read between the lines and hear the real stories that you can't get from a resume or from a LinkedIn profile, all designed to help you shape your own sales career. Let's dive right into today's episode and see what we can learn. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Career Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Hopp. My guest today retired at the age of 43 from his career in software sales. We're going to hear all about that. He was a former number one rep at Salesforce. Now he owns Ian Koniak Sales Coaching. I want to hear all about that story. Please, everyone, welcome the great and powerful Ian Koniak.
The one and only, great and powerful. I feel like a superhero. Thank you. Nice to be here, Kevin.
Absolutely. A SoCal guy. Fun fact for everybody, Ian lives in El Segundo,
I do.
Which is down the street from where I grew up in Redondo Beach. And then I believe you grew up in Culver City, right?
I did.
Not far.
Homework. Yeah, I love Redondo. We take the bikes down there all the time, and just the South Bay, I think I'm never going to leave. I really enjoy it here.
Oh, people rarely do. That's why they have that little comic strip called The Bubble. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it The Bubble because people never leave.
Yeah.
Once you get in the bubble, you stay in the bubble.
And it's not like LA. Everyone's got their impression of LA, but this is not what the South Bay is at all.
Yeah, no, the South Bay is a completely separate bubble of its own, of like surf side communities where it's a different vibe. Awesome. Well, Ian, let's jump into our new format here where I've got a few questions for you. The first things first, introduce yourself and tell the audience your 2-minute career story as if someone's never heard of you.
Okay, cool. So my career story, I started actually as a teacher in South America. I did not know I was going to go into sales. I moved with no Spanish, no knowledge of teaching, moved to South America, got a job, taught English for a year, fell in love, visa expired, had a girlfriend who I couldn't be with and had to move home because I basically had no visa, no girlfriend, no money, moved to my parents' house. And I'm like, I gotta get the hell out of Dodge here because this isn't going to work. So I was thinking, well, what can I do to make an unlimited amount of money and be able to save enough to bring my girlfriend from the U.S. or from Venezuela to the United States. And the only visas they were given out at the time were student visas. So just imagine a 23-year-old with no money needing to save, over 20 grand in a very short amount of time to be able to be with the person he loves and move out of his parents' house and support both of us and get an apartment and basically do what most people do in their 40s, which is save for college. So that got me into sales. I spent 10 years at a company called Rico. It was transactional selling, high volume. I was a fast riser there, was their top sales rep, then became their top manager, branch manager, general manager, then director of sales. So within 10 years of that company, I was running a $60 million business with 80 employees and 10 sales managers. We put in a little product called Salesforce.com, and I saw the light. I saw the opportunity in SaaS, and I said, I got to go work at this company. So I decided to go back as an individual contributor, and I never left. I stayed at Salesforce 9 years, had a very successful run there, especially the past 4 years, and was able to retire at the age of 43, where I now help other salespeople not only achieve their potential and really transition from transactional to strategic selling like I had to make, but also do it in a way where they're not sacrificing their health, their family, and their values. And I unfortunately made a lot of those mistakes myself in the pursuit of getting to the top. So I had to do a lot of personal development and change to be able to get myself to a place now where it's not just about making the money, it's about having the life and enjoying it with the people that you love. So that's my career in a 3-minute nutshell.
Fantastic. Well, what I really like about your story is half the people listening to this think of sales as one thing, which might be like, I got to make X amount of calls to sell X amount of widgets today or get this sale done by the end of the month. And then the other half of the people listening to this are thinking, well, my sales cycle is 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. So it's really cool that your career, you've had that experience on both sides of the aisle there. But what I think is really interesting, I wanted to ask you about real quick is, you went from being a teacher to in 10 years rising all the way to the top of running a $60 million book. Like, were you a natural born sales guy? Like, how come you didn't go into sales right out the gate? It sounds like it was like,
I think I was a natural born. I get asked this question sometimes, like, do you think there's certain natural, like, is there such thing as a natural born salesperson? I do think there is in some regards. There's people that are social, that are extroverted, that love people, that generally are likable and communicate well. And some of those qualities that don't care what people think of them, which I think lends itself really well to sales. And I had those qualities, which is why I did well going in. But there's also in enterprise selling that doesn't necessarily help you, right? It's a totally different ballgame when you're selling software and strategic deals. And a lot of times introverts and people that are more analytical do better in that space. And that was a struggle for me. But I didn't go into sales out of college, frankly, because I graduated in 2001. It was like the .com bubble. I went to Cal Berkeley and was quite a hippie when I was there. And basically my values were not the same as my values now. I mean, I loved travel. I loved adventure. I was basically a wild child and was out of this world nuts in those early years. And I was like, I'm just going to go to Venezuela and teach English. The women are beautiful. And I just want another adventure. And that's kind of how I lived my life back in those days. Is I would just follow my gut instinct and I'd go wherever. And, I had traveled to almost 30 countries by the time I was 22 years old. And so I was already in that travel bug mode. So it was a natural progression for me to go teach English somewhere graduating versus going to corporate America. At the time, it was like the last thing I would have ever wanted to do. And not in a million years, you couldn't pay me to do it. So teaching was much more appealing. And I didn't teach because I loved teaching. I did it because that was a way to get a job and travel in South America. So that was kind of just a means to an end for me to keep traveling.
Wow. Well, 30 countries before you're 22, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was awesome. I had a lot of stories there.
I believe it. Well, let's stick to what we can learn about your sales career, because your sales career in itself, I think, is got a lot for us to learn from. So the second question that I ask is, in the roles that you've had, what has been your most difficult sales job, and what made it so difficult?
By far the biggest. So Rico, people will say it's hard because you have to grind, you have to cold call. I had to do, 100 cold calls a day. It was a really difficult kind of situation for me. But that wasn't hard. If you did the work, if you showed up, if you prospected, you can be successful. But when I got to Salesforce, by far, I was put in the enterprise software space of Salesforce. And I went from having zero SaaS experience to selling enterprise at Salesforce, which frankly is a 10-year journey. If you start at the bottom of Salesforce as an SR, it takes about 10 years to get to where I started at. And so I thought, show up and just grind it and just really work hard and do the same thing I'd done when I was selling transactionally. And it didn't work. Unfortunately, at Salesforce, I missed my quota 3 years in a row. And I was working so hard to achieve the success that I was so used to. And despite grinding and outworking everyone, I still missed it. And so for me, it required, looking in the mirror and getting real with myself and basically changing how I was selling, changing my approach. And until I was humble enough to actually realize that maybe I wasn't God's gift to the sales world, and I needed to improve and learn and get better. Like I frankly didn't get the results that I ended up getting once I took that pause and started working on myself in 2017. And fortunately, once I made that move, every year after that, I made club. I made 7 figures twice. I was able to retire at 43. And my income tripled and basically set myself up to go do whatever I want. So that was the big shift, was those first few years of trying to sell enterprise deals with no experience and not understanding how and what was different about strategic selling versus transactional selling.
Yeah, I can imagine that is a big shift. It's definitely like my first sales job out of college. I was selling a white label mobile app to real estate agents. So I would get credit card information on the phone from a realtor who's like, yeah, I want the Kevin Hopp app. And I would charge them $30 a month. But that's kind of where I got hooked on sales, was the idea of oh my God, can I cold call this person and get them to give me their credit card number
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
phone? But
Not with
I
enterprise.
not an enterprise, yeah. And then my next job, I was an SDR at an enterprise software company, and I was just like, so wait, I'm gonna call somebody and set a meeting with them, but I'm not even sure if they're the buyer, and I'm not even sure who needs to be involved at their company to buy. Like as an enterprise SDR, it's like such a different job than getting, phone number or getting, credit card digits on the phone. So,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, one's like hustle and bustle, immediate gratification. One is like delayed gratification, patience. I mean, the deal cycles could be a lot of times, 6 months to 2 years in many cases. So it's a different skill set. It's a completely different skill set. So the hard worker that wants the pressure, that wants to get a decision, and wants to like get a yes or no. Like a lot of times, you could be dealing with 10 or 15 different stakeholders in a large deal, and they all have different priorities, they all have different agendas. So it really is about quarterbacking and aligning resources and political maneuvering. I mean, it's a totally different ball game. And when you treat it as just like the way you would sell something that's a lower purchase or a faster deal cycle, it don't work. It pisses off the clients, and frankly, that's not what it takes to be successful. So again, for me, it's really hard to. It wasn't like I was just selling enterprise software. I was managing a team of 15 people at Salesforce 2 that were selling all the different products. So it's like Tableau and MuleSoft and Service Cloud and Sales Cloud. There's so many products. So you're trying to be a quarterback for the client, but then you have all these internal resources that you want to make sure are marching in the same direction. You're being told, you have massive quotas that you have to hit, and everyone should be producing on your team. It's just a lot of leadership skills, selling skills, and then you have to be really, really good at engaging with customers and getting to C-suite executives that actually have the ability to buy and drive change within their organization. You're not selling a widget. You're selling change of how they're doing something today versus where they want to go tomorrow, and showing them why if they continue doing it the way they're doing it, they're going to put their goals at risk. They're going to put their biggest priorities at risk. And that takes a lot of like deep discovery. So a lot of times we would do 40 or 50 discovery meetings to get one deal. It wasn't like 3 or 4. I mean, it was like 40 or 50, 40. And I had my last year at Salesforce, I had 2 accounts, literally 2 accounts. And Bill was like, well, how did you do that? Well, if you think about how big these 2 accounts are and how many executives, each of these 2 accounts had over 500 VPs at the company. So yeah, you can spend and live in those accounts because they're just massive. So that's kind of the nature of selling large Fortune 500 type deals.
I believe it. Wow. So in your 2 tenures at Ricoh and Salesforce, you had a really cool story and an arc of going from the beginning to the end, or starting with humble beginnings, then figuring out how to conquer it. What's a story from in there that, looking at your resume, we wouldn't be able to know, but a story that's really important that tells kind of part of your journey?
Well, I think it's kind of what I alluded to. So I shared, with missing quota 3 years in a row. But what people don't know is the first 2 years I missed it pretty bad. I was in the enterprise space, and then I went to the commercial space because I'm like, maybe I'm not cut out for the enterprise. Maybe, I need more at bats. I'm a transactional person. I need to go to kind of a more suitable role within the company. And so I decided to change teams, and I moved over from enterprise to commercial. So I went from having, maybe five to 10 accounts at the time to now having 60 accounts. I'm like, yes, this is my jam. And I was doing more deals than anyone on the team. I was doing a lot of deals. Well, the challenge was each deal I was doing was very small. So like 50 to 75,000. So even though I was selling more deals than anyone, I still had this $1.5 million quota at the time. And going to the last day of the fiscal year, I was about 50K short of my quota. I was sitting at 95% of plan. And I was told that I was getting a 200K deal. And I actually went to the clients to go pick up the paperwork. They said, you just got to come in, meet with our president. It's a formality. Just go in. And I met with the president, showed her. She said, everything looks good. I just got to make a couple phone calls. And she was in the office for a couple hours. And I was sitting outside getting more and more nervous because, again, I had worked so hard. I had changed teams. I had switched divisions. I had started over. I'd done everything I could. And she comes out and she says, Ian, I'm sorry, we can't do the deal. And it was like a dagger to my heart, And I said, what the hell happened? This was all approved and, ready to rock and roll. And she says, our CIO from our parent company in China said, I talked to him on the phone. We're owned by a Chinese conglomerate, and he said not to do the deal because they're doing a CRM initiative and it sounds kind of similar, and they just want to do their diligence and make sure there's not any redundancy versus what we're doing versus what they're doing. And I'm like, there's not redundancy. And I started saying, there's no, like, this has been 6 months. Like, what they're doing, this is custom for you. And I pleaded and I begged and she said, look, if you can talk to the CIO, I'll sign the deal. But I called the CIO, didn't pick up. He didn't pick up. I called him like 10 or 15 times, emailed, finally picks up at 10:30 at night and tells me he's on vacation with his family, hangs up on me. And it was like a shot to the heart. I mean, I was like the most disappointed I've ever been. And I'm super grateful for that because that was my rock bottom in sales. And that's what got me looking in the mirror. I remember I had this pulsing migraine, this just horrible, horrific migraine of, not even recognizing myself. I can literally imagine, even though it was 5 years ago, I can go back to that second. I was up in my bathroom at my condo at the time, and I was just looking at myself, and my ears were ringing, and my head was pounding, and I'm like, fuck! Never fucking again! Like, I screamed at the top of my lungs, and I said, I am never going to go through this again. And I've had all kinds of injuries in my life. I was kind of a daredevil. There was no pain I ever had. That's not true. Up until that point in my life, there was no pain that I had ever had that felt is the pain of failure. But then that's what caused me to go, pause, invest $20,000 in my own personal development. I hired a coach, I joined a mastermind, and I took a step back and I started changing how I was selling. I made it not about me and my commissions, but about solving my customers' problems, about understanding their desired outcomes and working with them to help them achieve it. Their success became my success. Before that, I'd only been focusing on me, and look what it got me, nothing. But when I made it about other people and how it could serve them, I became the number one account executive at Salesforce. So I had to leave my ego at the door and realize that I was going about it the entire wrong way. And that's the beauty of it. Like, people see that on my resume, they think, oh, number one rep at Salesforce, made all this money, blah, blah, blah. They didn't see those 3 years of failure. And that's what got me to make the changes I needed to make to become the person I am now. So I love telling that story because I think people need to humble themselves. If they really want to, get to the top, you need to like really face reality of like, okay, how are you showing up? Are you giving your all? Are you working on the right things? Are there things that you need to improve? And when people do that, that's what primes them and puts them in a position to actually grow and develop. And that was certainly my journey. So I'm super grateful to be able to help other people. And when they come to me, usually they're at that point where they're fed up and they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So that's the story I love to share with anyone who asks.
And it's so almost, I could just picture like Wolf of Wall Street style of just like, come on, no. Like it's a really difficult moment, and any salesperson that has had a make or break day on the last day of the quarter or the year has felt that feeling in some way, shape, or form. But
it's the worst feeling. It's the worst. Yeah. And I said to myself, I will never what I said at the time is I will never put myself in a position where I have to make a sale to get my number on the last day of the year. I put myself in a position. So after that, it was all about like getting the quota early in the year and planning. And I just changed so much about how I sold. But it's the worst feeling to feel like you're a failure, to feel like you're no good. And up until then, I had put all my self-worth in my performance. And so 3 years in a row, I mean, can you imagine for someone who thinks they're hot shit to like miss 3 years in a row? And that's kind of what I went through. And it really was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, frankly, because then I put in the real work to get better.
I love that. And so the next two questions that I normally ask people are about their current job or job change stuff. And you're retired. You don't have a job anymore. You're a business owner. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, your coaching business and you talked a little bit about the basics of it, of what drove you to get to this point, but talk about your coaching business and kind of, how you're helping people make those sorts of changes.
Yeah. So it is a job, but it's not a job. There's a big difference, right? One is like you show up and you're working for another company. For me, it's about a mission. It really is about a calling and a mission. And, I had a near-death experience a few years ago. I won't get into too many details, but during that time, I prayed and I genuinely was filled with a lot of regret. And I'm like, man, if I died right now, I would regret so much. But the biggest regret that I had in that moment was that I hadn't used my gifts to serve others, right? And so I started immediately after that experience making videos and just kind of giving back to the sales community and then it evolved where people were wanting to pay me to do coaching. And usually, it started with like one-on-one coaching, and I did it before Salesforce because I was still in that mode. So I did it like, before the day started, took on, only a very small number of clients. And then in 2020, I mean, it really started, like the demand started coming in as my LinkedIn, and some of my content started taking off. I got a lot of demand. I'm like, maybe I should think about doing this full time. And so I reached out to some of the titans of the sales training world, people like John Barros and just Mike Weinberg, people that like do this for a living. And I said, well, what can you do working in this role? And they told me, and they were very open about kind of the opportunity. And so once I got over my fear of like not making as much money as I could in Salesforce and like followed my heart and my mission, then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take the plunge and whatever happens, happens. So I didn't originally do it because I needed the income. I saved enough where, again, I didn't have to work. My number was 20 years. So I could have not worked for 20 years and been fine with my lifestyle and what I live now. But I'm like, you know what? I don't want to retire and sit and play golf. I want to serve people and do it from a place of love and abundance rather than scarcity where I need to make money as a new business owner just to pay the bills, right? So I had that fortunate experience. And so I took it slow. My first couple, I'd say first year, last year when I left, I was doing one-on-one coaching. Well, gradually I kept getting more and more requests. So I built up this wait list of coaching people to over 1,000 people that wanted coaching and weren't able to work with me because I only have so much time in the day. And so I decided, you know what, I have to shift my business model. So just last week, I actually launched my new coaching platform, which is called Untap Your Sales Potential, untapyoursalespotential.com for anyone who's wondering. And it's really coaching as a service. So it's a new category that I'm introducing to the market. And it's basically, 3 levels of coaching, right? The online coaching, which I call bronze level, where they can go in, they have a year membership, and there's literally hundreds of videos that they can watch, templates, workbooks. I've taken 19 years of everything I've learned and the amount of time, effort, and energy I've put into this. It's my life's work, right? Some people say write a book. This is like 20 books in 1 year program. Right. So it is more content that people can consume in a year, all broken down by little bite-sized videos per topic. So discovery, multi-threading, all the stuff in sales, but also mindset and habits. Because the biggest thing that keeps people often from succeeding in sales is not their skill. It's actually how they show up, what they focus on, and frankly, shitty habits. And so I have a lot of content around mindset and habits to help people get, really in the peak mode of how, because it doesn't start, you don't become a top producer just based on your results. You become the person who shows up like a top producer, right? So what does a top producer do? How do they think? What do they work on? How do they value their time? These are all the things that I develop. So for people that want to go through that on their own, they can do self-service, watch the videos. I have workbooks. For people that want support from me, I have the Silver program where it's basically all the portal stuff, plus they meet with me every single week. I do 2 calls a week in a group setting. And they get live hands-on support. And then for the people who really want like personal help one-on-one, that's the gold level coaching. Once I launched that sold out within 2 days. So there's no more spots there, but the silver where, it's weekly meetings with me is still available. So that's the cool thing is like, now it's scalable. So I'm taking 125 clients, 25 in the gold, which sold out, and then 100 in the silver. And then I could serve more people at scale and get them weekly access and support. There's a private community. So this thing is just in its first version. It's going to it's going to evolve. And I'm just so grateful to be able to do what I love and build a business and build a platform and, serve so many people so they don't make the same mistakes I make and do it the wrong way where they're, dealing with crap that I dealt with, like addiction and, and almost losing their family and all the hardships that I had to face on my road to success. Do it the right way without sacrificing your health, your family, and your life, basically. Because there's so many people that even if they aren't successful in sales, they still, unfortunately, don't feel fulfilled. They still are upset. They, when they're not working, they're just thinking about work, and it's just like a shitty life. So that's the kind of stuff I try to help people with in my business.
I really appreciate that because it's something that is not talked about nearly enough. That as salespeople, our job is to like get people to take action all the time and to collect money. Your job is to collect money. you have a quota of how much money you need to collect from other people. And the idea of having a quota is very self-serving. It's not, no, I haven't seen a sales leader who's like, I need you to positively impact and drive awesome change at these companies, X amount of companies, and that's your quota. It's $1.
Yeah.
Always tied to the dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard to find meaning in that. It's hard to find purpose and to tie it back to like, I'm doing something that's really meaningful.
You're right. And that's something I struggle to advise people on, because it's a performance sport. It's like athletics. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're not performing, if you're batting 100, you're going to be kicked off the team in baseball, right? If you're dropping passes in football, you're going to be benched. You have to perform in sales, but the way to perform really well is to not focus on performance. That's the irony of this. If you really want to perform well in sales, if you truly are making it about solving your clients' biggest problems and helping them achieve their desired outcomes, and just like genuinely not being attached to the outcome, but really like looking at sales as, hey, this is for them, this is good for them, and I'm going to help them and guide them because this is the right thing for their business. And if you make it all about them and not your number, like the sales, you'll get 200, 300, 400% a plan. That's in fact the switch that I made, was an inward switch. Hey, my job is to hit my quota, to my job is to actually help my clients achieve their outcomes. Now, if you focus on their outcomes, you're going to get your quota as a byproduct of it. But if you're just focusing on your quota, you're going to show up with commission breath. You're going to show up desperate. You're going to show up as needy. You're going to put pressure, and no one responds to that. So you kind of have to like put the quota in the back of your mind and just really truly focus on the process and not the prize. The process is showing up every day and working on revenue generating activities, advancing your deals, creating pipeline, reaching out to people, staying organized, following up, all those things that fundamentally make people successful lead to a sale. Those are the things you want to focus on versus, oh shit, I'm halfway to my quota. I only have a week left. I better try and figure out how to get there. That's very much transactional, pressure-driven selling, and it doesn't work well. You scrape and claw maybe to make your number, but you're not getting to 300 or 400% selling that way. I promise you.
Right. So, I mean, you might have just given the keys to the castle there, but the last question is, if you could go back and give one piece of advice to yourself right when you started your sales career, like one little key tidbit, what would that be?
My biggest piece of advice to myself would be, remember that you're not your number. Okay. When I was in my sales career, and when it serves you very well to think of yourself as a number, an achievement in some regards. It makes you hungry. It makes you really aggressive. It makes you go out and want to hustle when you think that way. But the problem with it is that you're never happy. You're never content, because you're always chasing. You're chasing and you're chasing. You want to get more. You want to make club. You want to get this. You want to get that. And it's like exhausting. Okay. So that's kind of like the advice I would give myself, is like, do what you can, but remember, even if things don't fall your way, or even if things don't come immediately, like, there are other things in your life you can be proud of. Because for me, if I wasn't performing, I was at the bar. I was stressed out. I was medicating in unhealthy ways, especially when I first started my career. It was like I worked so hard, and then when I wasn't working, I was partying my ass off, and it's like this celebratory kind of like work hard, play hard. And I was doing that for a very long time. So I would tell myself, like, don't put all your worth in just your performance. Like, work on yourself in other areas, be a good person, like help other people, like take care of your health, like genuinely, like live with integrity. I don't think I was a good person back then. And when I started my career, I certainly was a good salesperson, but I wasn't a good person. So I would really emphasize myself to build my character and my values and live my values, and things that I more, centered on doing every day right now versus before. I probably lied. I probably cheated. I probably cut some corners when I was in my sales, because I would do whatever it took to get to the numbers. I didn't sell with the integrity that I sell with now, and with I've been selling with, frankly, for quite a long time. When I first started, it was all about get the deal, get the deal, get the deal. Now, I didn't lie blatantly, just like I wouldn't tell customers that it would do something that it didn't do, but I certainly would say, like, oh, you have so much leverage and so much flexibility in sales with the pricing and the deals you can do. And I definitely would use that in a way that was probably a little gray area of certain things to get deals done and apply pressure, when now I would never consider doing that. It's like, hey, if you don't want it, that's fine. Like, I'm not your guy, but if you do, let's figure this out. Don't give me a maybe. So there's ways to sell with getting people to make a decision that aren't like slimy and so, reliant on like discounting or whatever that I used to sell with. So I just, that's what I would tell myself is you are more than your number. Work on yourself outside of work, develop yourself into the great person so you can be a great salesperson.
Fantastic lesson that you learned the hard way, but you took it all the way to the top. So I hope my audience is like hearing that. You're one of these guys that talks about how much money he's made, which in sales is the big hidden secret. On LinkedIn, there's so much chatter and so much going on, and I always think like, well, how successful are these people really? And it's you and Brandon Fluardi and a few other people. Brandon put his W-2 on LinkedIn. I mean, that's like the ultimate flex. But at the same time, it's like that. It gives you all the credibility in the world to say like, look, this is what I actually did to get to where most people really want to go. So,
Brandon sold more than me. Jamal Rainier is another guy who sold more than me. I was averaging about 750. Actually, no, it was like I looked at the past 4 years in Salesforce. My first 4 years, it was like 240. In the last 4 years, it was 720. So my income tripled, but 2 of those 4 years I cleared 7 figures. The other 2 were around 4 to 5 or so. So it basically averaged out to 720. But I didn't make $1 million 5 years in a row like Brandon did or whatever he did. It's not. But for most people, like I'd say for 99.9% of people, making 720 would be a dream come true. So
for sure,
the big thing I emphasize is it's not about the money so much as it's about doing it the right way and taking care of your customers and solving the biggest problems. That's when the money came for me. When I was just focused on grinding and closing business, man, that didn't work in the enterprise. It's like they don't buy that way. So I feel like, there's credibility and I do use it for marketing purposes, I would say. But really what I'm most proud of is my sobriety. What I'm most proud of is the fact it's been 26 months since I've gotten drunk or smoked pot or viewed any porn or taken Adderall or played gambled of any kind. Like I don't know anyone who's at least admittedly, knocked off 1, if not 5 very, very common addictive behaviors. So the work I've had to put in to be able to become the person who doesn't need to medicate, check out, rely on those things to feel good. I mean, that's what I'm by far the most proud of. And that's frankly what I teach in my programs is how to like show up and not feel like you're not enough, because when you feel like you're not enough, that's when you go into behaviors that are not healthy. So that's really I'm 10 times more proud of that and my faith than I am my income that I've made over the past few years.
Fantastic. Well, Ian, thank you so much for sharing with us. Like this has been incredible insights. I'm going to end here with one of the new things I'm doing, which is a rapid fire round of questions. So try to give the shortest, quickest answer you can to these questions. Are you ready?
I talk a lot, so I'll do my best. Let's go.
Well, we kind of covered this, but number one, do you believe salespeople should be money motivated?
Yes, I do. Do you need to know why?
Is it quick?
Yeah, I'll be super quick. Yes, I do, sure. Because again, it's a scoreboard. It's a scoreboard in a performance-driven business. And if you're not after commission and you work in sales, why the heck are you working in sales? Like you have to want to make the commission because that's how you're measured. You're going to have a tough time if you're purely altruistic in sales. Do I think money motivation is the way to be the best salesperson in the world? We've talked about that. No, I don't. I think you should be money motivated in sales. Absolutely. Love that. So do you think cold calling is dead? No. I think cold calling is not dead. I think if you're sending shitty, like crappy, generic outreaches to the same person that sounds the same to 100 people all day long, no one's going to respond. But if you're reaching out to someone you've never met and you have a point of view and you have some context as to why you're reaching out and you make it personal and you do your research about them and you have a really, really good story as to why you meet, that could be considered a cold call. I call it a warm call. But fundamentally, like if you've never met with the person, you still need to reach out. I book meetings all day long with doing the right type of research, and it works really well. And, absolutely, I believe in outbound as long as it's the right type of outbound and personalized to the person and give them a reason why you should meet and really be thoughtful with the messaging you're sending out. Awesome. So zooming out for this question, because you worked for organizations that had very big organizations, right? Like big teams, a lot going on. So this question is, what do you think is more important in a go-to-market strategy, sales or marketing? Marketing. Ooh, marketing. I'm not kidding. I built my coaching business. It's already well over 7 figures and in a very short amount of time. And it was through content marketing. been putting videos on LinkedIn every single week for more than 2.5 years, and I have warm people coming to me ready to buy. And it all started with really, really good marketing to raise awareness, to help them really do better. And once you do that, people are going to want more, right? So for me, I'm telling you that if I would never have been able to do that if I just started doing cold calls and no one who knew who I was, right? So yeah. I think they go hand in hand. I don't think they're silent anymore, but I absolutely think if you want to make it a lot easier on sales, like have really good marketing and have a good inbound process. And again, people are coming to you warm, but they go hand in hand. It's almost a trick question, but for me on my business, marketing is how I generate sales. So that's why I say marketing.
Love that. Last question for you. So, imagine you had all the money you could ever want and you didn't have to work anymore. What would you do with your time if you didn't have to work?
Exactly what I'm doing right now. I don't have to work now, and I'm doing exactly what I'm doing. I want it. Sales is broken. Companies are broken. People go in it and run it the wrong way. There's depression. There's addiction. There's just not many happy salespeople. Even the best ones are restless and unfulfilled. And I want to show people you can have it all. You can have a great life, have peace, inner peace, and still be a phenomenal top performer. I would be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. And for that, I am so grateful to be able to hopefully up level this industry and show people that you can sell with integrity, with authenticity, and be your awesome self and not have to sacrifice your values to go out and crush it in the world of sales. Because people still think of sales as the used car salesman. They still have this slimy impression of it. And it's just the best career in the world, when you do it the right way. So my life mission is to dedicate myself right now to helping up level sales. And eventually I'll probably move into human potential and the power of human potential and getting, helping addicts and fundamentally helping people believe in themselves and get rid of the stories that are holding them back and the habits that are holding them back. But for now, I'm just doing that within the sales community because that's what I know and that's where my network is. So I wouldn't change a thing right now.
Wow, it's a lucky place to be. Not a lot of people are at that point in their life. So it's been a pleasure to hear from you, and thank you very much for sharing with us. Last opportunity here. How can people connect with you? What's the best way for them to join the program? We'll put a link to it in the show notes. But anything else?
Yep. So I'll start with free resources. Go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ian Koniak. Go to my LinkedIn. I'm always posting. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I will send you a link to my newsletter. You can subscribe, and my YouTube, you can sub there. I have a ton of content for people that just want to, absorb the free stuff. It's all hopefully very, very valuable for you. And then for people that want more hands-on help and want coaching, go to untapyoursalespotential.com. And the enrollment's open. It's going to be open through May 16th, after which time I'm closing out the program so I can focus on delivering the best experience to the 100 people that I have in the silver program. So if you want in, now is a great time if this podcast comes out before May 16th, and you can sign up right there. And then I'll see you on May 18th when I actually start my first week of live training for the group. So that's the best place to find me if you're interested in my services. And
I'll make sure this podcast comes out next week.
Thank you, brother.
Somewhere around May 5th. Of course. Well, thanks, Ian. I really do appreciate you giving us your time here, and have a great rest of your day, man.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon. Nice to meet you, Kevin.
If this episode is interesting to you, please share your thoughts on LinkedIn or Twitter. Tag me, and I might just feature your post in an upcoming episode of the Sales Career Podcast. Or, if you want to connect directly, go to hopconsultinggroup.com, and we'll find a way to work together. Cheers.